Uh, Hello everyone. Before we start, I just want you guys to know that you guys can enable live captions at the bottom right of the screen. All right. So hello everybody. Before we get started, I just want you to thank you for joining us today for our first webinar on Azure DevOps. My name's Ping, and I am a senior cloud engineer at IFI Techsolutions, and I will be your guest speaker for today. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our company, IFI Techsolutions, which has been growing and delivering continuously for the past 6 years. We are a born-in-cloud Microsoft Gold partner and a cloud solutions provider, and we are 2020 Microsoft Partner of the Year finalists in OSS on Azure. We were set up by ex-Microsoft employees, and our vision is to help enterprises and SMBs with their digital transformation. Our expertise include cloud strategies and roadmaps, migrations, providing POCs to our clients, and much more. Within 6 years, we have delivered over 300 projects, migrated over 3,000 servers, and we continue to grow and evolve daily. All right, let's jump right in with the agenda for today's session. First, we will be having a quick introduction to Azure DevOps, what it actually is, the services it provides, business benefits that you will be getting out of integrating a DevOps environment into your organization, and of course, the benefits you will be reaping from Azure DevOps itself. After that, I'll be giving you a quick demo / walkthrough of the Azure DevOps portal, and we'll be showing you how to implement a fully automated CI/CD pipeline so that your code can go from an idea to a live product in just a couple of minutes. We will also be looking at case studies in which clients have used Azure DevOps within their organization and how they are benefiting from implementing DevOps strategies. We will finally end with a Q&A session, so please feel free to submit your questions in the chat below at any time during this webinar. We will be compiling all the questions and we'll be answering them in the Q&A session at the end. Also, this webinar will be recorded and will be made available on our YouTube channel within a couple of days, so stay tuned for that also. All right, let's get started with our first slide. So DevOps is described as a union of people, process, and products to continuously deliver value to our end users. DevOps is not just about automating a pipeline and pushing your code to production faster, but it is about delivering value to our end users and breaking barriers within our organization itself. DevOps is not just a product in which you buy and install it. It's not just automation, but it is people following a process enabled by products to deliver value to end users. DevOps is there to break the communication barrier presented in traditional organization, and it gives you common area for your development and ops team to communicate with each other. So let's take a look at what we can actually achieve with DevOps. According to a survey taken in 2019 by Dora and Google Cloud DevOps displayed on the chart here, we are able to see many business benefits of integrating DevOps into your organization, but let's take a look at them in detail. The first one being faster delivery time. The main principles of DevOps include automation, continuous delivery, and a quick feedback cycle, aiming to make a software development process faster, more efficient, and brings more value. DevOps utilizes automation to ensure a smooth flow of the SDLC, and by promoting a collaborative culture, it offers the scope for quick and continuous feedback so that any glitches are fixed in time and the releases are done faster. Also, with DevOps, you do get early bug detection. A collaborative DevOps environment paves way for a culture of knowledge sharing across teams. With automated deliveries, continuous monitoring, and continuous testing of the code, it helps improve the overall build quality. We advocate teams to share their feedback with each other so that the defects are detected early as well resolved early. You will be getting continuous release and deployment. And being in a space where software and technologies are constantly evolving, it is required from our end to keep up with the never-ending changes and evolve alongside it. With DevOps, it encourages teams to continuously deliver quality software reduce go-to-market timelines, and adapt shorter release cycles. And all of this can be done through DevOps automation. And of course, the thing that is most important, DevOps creates greater customer experiences. From the chart, we can see that with DevOps, organizations can improve their development frequency by 200 times, have a 7-time lower change failure rate delivery pipeline, 106 times faster commits to deployment. Automating pipelines make it possible to ensure the reliability and stability of an application after every new release. When the applications perform flawlessly in production, organizations reap the benefits of greater customer satisfaction. Microsoft provides a platform to implement DevOps within your organization called as Azure DevOps. To access Azure DevOps, you just have to log into dev.azure.com. And let's take a look at the services that Azure DevOps has to provide, which includes Azure Boards. And with Azure Boards, you will be able to use Agile, Scrum, or other tool plans to track, plan, and discuss work across your teams. Azure Pipelines is where you build, test, and deploy your codes by using CI/CD pipelines. And with Azure Repos, you have a place to store your code and implement Git strategies. Azure Test Plans is your place to do manual and exploratory testing. And finally, with Azure Artifacts, it allows you to create and host packages and then share these packages with your team. A reminder is that with Azure DevOps, you don't need to use every single service. You can choose which service you do want to integrate within your organization. So Azure Boards is a place where you can implement project management within your organization. These are the features within Azure Boards. You are able to add work items within your boards to track your team's progress within the project. Your work items would follow a process like Agile or Scrum. Kanban boards is a way to manage your flow of work from just an idea to completion. And you can also plan sprints and organize your backlogs in order to track your work items better. Within Azure Boards, your backlogs and work items are organized through a process, and you're able to customize your work items and their fields. You'll be able to write queries to find out and filter out your work items, and you can use these queries to make charts and post these on your dashboard. Users can configure tools, resources for Azure Boards, and also give permissions to specific users to access Azure Boards. With Azure Repos, you can implement version controlling into your code using Git or TFVC. Features of Azure Repos include an unlimited amount of private free Git repositories, and you can securely connect and push code into it from any IDE, editor, or Git client. Also, you are able to create webhooks to extend what Azure DevOps does when the repository changes. And also, Azure Repo provides a feature called a semantic code search, in which it is made easy since it understands classes and variables, pull requests, and more. All right. While we are on the topic of Azure Repos, I also want to talk a little bit about GitHub. In 2018, Microsoft acquired GitHub, and they have been working and adding new features to improve it. Before, we viewed GitHub as a place to store code and share code with the developer community, and now it has evolved and it provides us with so much more. GitHub is now able to implement DevOps strategies and even host its own CI/CD pipelines. Azure Pipelines, this is the major part of DevOps, and with Azure, you get cloud-hosted pipelines for Linux, Mac OS, and Windows. You are able to build web, desktop, and mobile applications also. And you can deploy this to any cloud or any on-premise services too. This is where all your integration and deployments occur. With Azure Pipelines, you can have your production fully automated. And before we take a look at the features of Azure Pipelines, let's just discuss what exactly CI/CD means. Implementing CI and CD pipelines help to ensure consistent and quality code that's readily available to users. Continuous integration is used to automate tests and builds for your projects. CI or continuous integration helps to catch bugs or issues early in the development cycle, when they're easier and faster to fix them. Items known as artifacts produced from CI systems. Items known as artifacts are produced from CI systems, and they're used by the continuous delivery release pipelines to drive automatic deployment. CD or continuous delivery is used to automatically deploy and test code in multiple stages to help drive quality. The working of this would be that continuous integration systems produce deployable artifacts, which includes infrastructure and applications. Your automated release pipeline consumes these artifacts to release new versions and fix to the target of your choice. So you are able to integrate your CI/CD pipelines with any language, whether it's Java, Node, C#, PHP, and more. And you can deploy this to any platform and any cloud, not just Azure. Azure Pipelines provide tons of templates to choose from to create deployment tasks, and also has the support for YAML. It also provides hundreds of extensions from Slack to Sonar Cloud that you could integrate with your pipelines. You can also integrate your pipelines with containers and Kubernetes, and you're able to push images to container registries like Docker Hub and Azure Container Registries. Okay. So with Azure Test Plans, you can execute planned and exploratory testing to improve your code quality. With manual testing, you plan, execute, and track scripted tests with actionable defects and end-to-end traceability. You could assess quality throughout the development lifecycle by testing your desktop or web applications, and you can design and execute tests simultaneously to maximize quality in software development processes using exploratory test solutions. You can also capture data as you execute these tests and make discovered defects actionable. You can create work items based on these defects and connect it with your Azure Boards. Azure Artifacts is an extension that makes it easy to discover NPM and Maven packages in Azure DevOps. Azure Artifacts is highly integrated with your build pipelines, and you can add fully integrated package management to your CI/CD pipelines with a single click. Azure Artifacts introduces the concept of multiple feeds that you can access to your packages. You will create Azure Artifacts for teams of any size, and you can leverage the same test tools across your engineers and only pay for the tools when you need them. All right. Let us take a look at the benefits of Azure DevOps. Collaboration is a big part of Azure DevOps. It removes the barrier between your dev and ops team, and it gives you a central communication point between your teams. Even if all your team has for coding is a normal PowerShell script used to provision accounts or manage servers, storing the code in Azure DevOps will provide a central location from which to manage the code. Another one is speed. Bugs are caught faster and can be solved faster. With CI/CD pipelines, your teams are able to deliver faster to production. Also, a big part of your cloud solutions is the ability to scale your resources to meet your business needs. With Azure DevOps, you can have infrastructure as a code to manage your development, testing, and production environment. As a SaaS offering, Azure DevOps is reliable, scalable, and globally available. It is also backed by an SLA of 99.9% uptime and by 24/7 support. Also, you can implement monitoring and logging practices to help you stay informed about your team's performance in real time. Also, with security, you can have automated compliance policies, and you can also assign different roles to different users to filter out what they are able to use and what they aren't. Our next session is the demo session, but if you did have any questions during this part, please do leave them in the chat below, and once again, I'll be answering them towards the end of this webinar. Okay, so basically, When you first log into dev.azure.com, this is what the home screen would look like. You would have your organizations on the left-hand side of the screen. You can add new organizations. You can change your organization settings below. And Azure DevOps is constantly pushing out new releases. So you can read the different sprint and release notes of what is happening in Azure DevOps here. You are able to create a new project on the right-hand side. You would just have to give a project name, the description, whether you want this project to be a public or private project. In the advanced settings, you are able to choose the version controlling, and you are also able to choose your work item process, meaning that whether you want to follow and this is one of their projects, Space Game. This company uses Azure DevOps to fully automate their deployments. So we'll be able to see how this company is using Azure DevOps. Once you first go into your projects page, this is the summary page of your project. On your left-hand side, once again, you see the different services that Azure DevOps provides, the boards, repos, pipelines, test plans, and artifacts. You're able to configure your project settings below. This is the about your project. You can see the languages it's using. On the top, you're able to invite users if you want to. And down below, you're able to see the project stats of your project, the number of work, how many work items have been recently created, how many work items have been completed, some pull requests if they are open, and how many commits. And you're also able to see the percentage of your builds succeed and your deployments succeeded. And you are also able to view the members down below. Okay, so the first thing that we'll be taking a look at is the boards part of Azure DevOps. When you first click on boards, it takes you to a list of work items that are already part of your boards within DevOps. So here we can see that we have test plans. We can see we have some bugs within our code or within our project itself. And you can see there are different work items that are assigned to people also. When you click on boards specifically, you're redirected to the Kanban boards. When you click on boards, you are redirected to the Kanban boards here. We can see which work items are currently active, which have been resolved, how many have been closed. This just gives you a quick overview of all the work items and where they are actually. Also, you can see that your work items are separated into 3 different categories. And this is just the default way that Azure DevOps has provided if you do follow an agile methodology. So it gets split into epics, and which gets split into different features, which gets split into different stories, and you are able to all view them individually. And this just gives you a more breakdown of your work items to show you. You are also able to divide your work items into different sprints, meaning that your first sprint is stuff that you can add work items to a sprint, meaning that during that sprint, those work items need to be completed, and that would be considered as your first sprint. And your second sprint is when a different set of work items need to be completed. So you are able to set those dates here, and you can choose the sprint. Now, to create your work items, you can create your work item here, or you can go to the work items on the work item page. Just hit on new work item. You can choose the work item that you do want to make, and it will take you to your work item card. Your work item card is basically just the configuration of the work item that you want. Here you would just add a name or a title that you want to call this work item. You can pick the state that it's in, the reason that the area and iteration, meaning the sprint that you want it part of. You can add a description, and you can also set different stuff. Again, this card right here that you see is completely customizable, and you can do and create however you want to. Next, we will be looking at Azure Repos. So your Azure Repos is a place to store your code. Here you can add a new repository if you want. As I said before, Azure does give you unlimited Git repositories, and also it has support for TFVC too. Right here is the branches you would see. The master and release branch is what I have here. And here is where your source code is stored. You are able to see your commits. Here, all the commits that have been made to this pipeline, to this release branch, and to your master branch is different, and you are able to see on the side, it gives you the status of your build pipelines also, if it makes it easier. Now your pushes is just a more broken down way to see all your commits. So you can see how many commits are part of one single push, and that's what would happen in your push tab. Also, your branches tab, this is where you are going to be able to set your branch policies and branch security also. So you can set different policies about who can access which branch and who has permission to push to which branch. That is part of the branches part. Next is the pull request. And this is where you can create a pull request, meaning that if you want to merge two branches together, this is where you would create the pull request for that. This is another Git strategy that is used often. So that's where you would do this. Next, I will show you how to fully automate your pipeline from just a code to production, basically. But first, we'll just take a look at the web app that I have already deployed and what it currently looks like. This is the web app currently. This is for Space Game, as said earlier, for the company Tailspin. They have developed a website called Space Game. You can see here that you can download the game. There are different scoreboards down here before. And I'm just going to show you how to make a really simple change to this. So if I just open up Visual Studio, you can see that I have my code here, and I'm just going to make a simple change to the home page that just says this is a demo. I will be saving these changes, and if you just go to Team Explorer here and you hit changes, you can enter a message. And what you're going to want to do is just commit all and push. So what that does is that this will trigger my pipeline automatically that I have already set up here. And you can see that my pipeline has already started deploying. What you have to do is basically just press this pipeline right here. And here we can see the different stages of my pipeline. First is the build stage, where it would be building and compiling my code, and those artifacts would be made. The artifacts are passed on to my development environment, and it will be passed to my dev web app. After that, it will be going into my testing and my staging environment. While this is going, I will just be showing you what my pipeline looks like. So if I just hit on that edit button, it will take me to my pipeline. I have created a multi-stage pipeline using YAML. Okay, so here, this is my pipeline. Up here is where I configured my variables. And down here is where my stages start. So you can see as my first stage was my build stage. And down here are the steps of my stage that need to be completed in order for it to be successful. I get to choose the .NET SDK version that I want. I run an npm install since I do have some node modules in there also. I also have some gulp tasks, so that also has to be run. From here, we can see it's a .NET Core project, so we start restoring our project dependencies, and then we start building our project. Finally, we need that artifact to be published, so that is where we get this published part. Once that is done, it gets moved onto our dev stage, and you can see here that it depends on our build stage. So unless our build stage succeeds, it will not move on to our dev stage. Here we can see the conditions, meaning it has to succeed my build stage. From the source branch name is my release branch. We set our environment as the dev environment, and right here you can see the tasks. So here I can set my Azure subscription that my web app is part of. I can choose my web app name and also the package, meaning the artifact that is built within my build pipeline. It's basically the same thing for my testing stage also, just a different web app name. And for my staging part, I have added approval gates, meaning that someone needs to approve my someone would need to approve my pipeline before it gets moved into my staging web app. So if I go back to my pipelines here and I click on the currently running pipeline. Okay, so here now we can see that 3 stages have been completed, and we are just waiting on the staging stage. So you can see here that 0 out of 1 checks have passed, and until that 1 check or that approval gate that I was talking about has passed, it will not be moved into my staging stage. So I can either review it from here, and then I can approve it or reject it. If I want to, I can add a comment. Once I do approve it, it is going to start deploying. So we see here 1 check has passed, and it is going to start deploying to my staging environment too. As for the development web app, we see that it is already there. It has already been deployed. So now I can go to my development web app, and if I just reload this page, we can see that the changes would have been made here. So you can see here that this is a demo has shown up. This demo, we are able to see how we can make code changes, push those changes into our Azure repos, and automate the deployments of our applications. You can see that just within a couple of minutes, your ideas can go to a real-life product. So that is just the quick demo portion of how you would be able to automate your pipelines fully. So now we can move on to the case study portion, which IFI has worked on, in which IFI helped a multinational engineering company streamline their deployments using Azure DevOps. The company in which we helped has over 3 decades of experience and expertise in the hydrocarbon segment. Basically, just to put it in basic terms, the organization wanted to modernize their way of development. With the organization having different verticals, including offshore, onshore, construction, and engineering services, they wanted an efficient way to streamline their deployments and bring their internal applications to production faster. The client's infrastructure was fully on-premise, and alongside Microsoft, we were able to modernize their infrastructure and applications using different Azure services like Azure Web Apps, Azure DevOps, SQL on Azure, Application Insights, and much more. Talking solution-wise, we noticed that the clients were using TFVC as their choice of version controlling, and we were able to migrate them over to Git and also help them implement Git strategies like branching and pull requests. We were also able to onboard their developers and testers to Azure DevOps and provide training so that they would be successful in implementing DevOps practices in their development phase. With the help of IFI, This company is able to automate their deployments with CI/CD pipelines and reap the benefits of DevOps strategies. They are currently hosting their applications and infrastructure all on Azure. This is just one of the case studies in which we were able to implement DevOps on Azure for our client. All right. Okay, so before we start with the Q&A, I just want to let you all know that we have many more webinars scheduled in the near future on exciting topics like OSS on Azure, Power BI, application modernization, and much more. So please be sure to register yourself for those as well. Our next webinar will be on the 4th of August, and we will be discussing about OSS on Azure. So be sure not to miss out and register yourself. Please feel free to take a screenshot of this slide so that you know where to register and our schedule for the next couple of webinars. I will keep the slide here for a couple of seconds so that you are able to screenshot it. Also, for the Q&A session, we have Vikas joining us, who is a consultant here at IFI. So welcome, Vikas, and let's get to answering your questions.
Right. So first, one of you guys asked, is Azure Enterprise ready? So the answer is yes, it is, and it's being used by one of the largest organization around across the world. You name it, all the organizations already using Azure. So yes, Azure Enterprise is being used. Also, it's about 99% of Fortune 500 companies are using Azure or for their cloud workload. As of now, we cannot, right? This capability does not exist. But when you're pushing and putting a code in Azure Repos, you need to perform an authentication and authorization before you try to use that code or repo, right? So there's always a secure mechanism to access your code, right? But IP restriction is not possible as of today, right? And there's no future plans for that as well from product team. The next one, is there anything more on Azure Boards provided as compared to Jira Atlassian tool? Right? So Azure Boards can do pretty much everything when it comes to managing your project, like building and Kanban boards, managing your sprints, right? Managing tasks. So it's pretty much do can everything. For detailed comparison, there's already enough content on the internet. You can just look Azure Boards versus Jira Atlassian. You should find good article for that theme, right? And that should help you to do a detailed comparison. But at the high level, yeah, these two tools are pretty much can do everything almost similar, right? I hope that answers to your question. The next one is from Anu. If I have multiple projects in Azure DevOps and each project has a multiple Git repos, is there a way to search for a Git repo or list down all the Git repo using a query? Uh, I don't think you can list down the Git repos, but what you can do, there's a global search within the Azure DevOps. When you go to the Azure DevOps portal, there's a global search on top of right hand side. So you can search there, right? It can search across the projects. It can search your code across the projects and repos as well, right? But I don't think you can list down the repos. Ping, do you know? I don't remember that we have Azure DevOps has such capability to list down just repos project wise.
No, there's no such capability like that.
Yeah. But yeah, you can always do a search for a code across the all the projects, and then you can put in filters as well. If you are looking within a specific projects which has multiple Git repos, right? So you can look for code, but listing down Git repos project wise is that's I don't see that's an available today. Right. So for demo, we are using Visual Studio 2019. Okay, that's what we are using. Is it possible to deploy the website or API on IIS server? I think that's what you mean, without using FTP in CI/CD. Right. You can do that. You can use the deploy agent, Azure DevOps agent for to deploy this. Again, what CI/CD is doing, it's creating a package at the end of the before the deploying file, and then push zip file to the whatever location or wherever you are deploying this code, right? It could be Azure or Kubernetes or maybe IIS server, right? So Azure DevOps agent, you can have on the IIS server and you can push it without opening or creating any FTP or enabling any FTP on the server. I hope that answers your query. So, what is the major difference in basic and stakeholder rights in Azure DevOps? So, stakeholder don't have any rights to perform operations, though they get visibility to those. Okay, in the Azure DevOps, right? While basic allows you to perform operations on Azure DevOps. That's the major difference. So, stakeholder for someone who's just overlooking the project but not really doing a work, right? Basic and maybe basic plus test plan for those individuals who are really pushing code, doing tests, approving, creating pipelines, configuring, right? So for those individuals. Okay, one project repo can be accessed by other project as well. I don't think you can do that. It's limited to the project only, while one individual can have access to multiple projects, right? And that's how they can get access to multiple repos as well. Can I share one repo across different projects? Yep, you can't. Can we integrate Selenium Azure test cases? Yes, you can definitely integrate Selenium within the Azure DevOps. Right? There's a support for that even. Right? And if you are looking for automated testing, then yeah, we would recommend you to use Selenium instead of any Microsoft tools or service for that. Right? Visual Studio I test cases, I don't think those are, because Microsoft are not planning to invest or enhance them anymore, right? So we would recommend you to go for Selenium, right? And you can definitely have that integration. Can we use artifacts in release pipeline? Yes, you can use that, right? Artifacts for more scenario, think of you have the private packages, right? It could be npm or NuGet, right? And you can definitely include them in your pipeline, right? Okay, how to do that? There's a documentation link. I will just post in the link. Ping, can you paste a link in the chat? Using artifact within the pipeline. Right. So you can go through that link, and if you have any concern, then you can always reach out to me, Ping, right, on the mentioned coordinates. Okay. Okay, any other questions? I see. Okay, what is Azure Artifacts user? So Azure Artifacts, as I said before, it's for the private packages that you own, that you have built within the organization and not part of the public repository like NuGet, NPM. These are public repositories, right? Public package managers. So if you have built something for them, but again, these are private packages, then you can use Azure Artifacts, right? Maybe you build a private DLL, maybe for a .NET application. Now you would like to use that within your organization, right? So you can use Azure Artifacts for those scenarios, right? That's where you use. If you're using already public packages, then there's no reason really to use a artifact. Okay, guys, we still have few minutes left. So if you want to ask any query, please feel free to post in the Q&A section. Okay, so one more question. Azure DevOps provide any option to test UI of iOS app on different screen sizes? Not really, but there's a service. Microsoft has a service for this kind of scenarios. This called Visual Studio App Center. Okay, this is really meant for this kind of scenarios where you have you're building a mobile application for Android and iOS, right? And you would like to test your application before the release on multiple devices and multiple version of iOS and Android as well. So you can use Visual Studio App Center for that, and it has an integration with the Azure DevOps as well. And you would like to test your application before the release on multiple devices and multiple version of iOS and Android as well. So you can use Visual Studio App Center for that, and it has an integration with the Azure DevOps as well. Right? So you can go forward with that service. Okay, what is tags in Azure Repos? So these tags are not really for Azure Repos. These are part of the Git version control system, right? So you can tag your minor versions or maybe fixes with those tags. So you to make sure that you are releasing and publishing the right version of your application to the environment, right? So that's maybe think of a scenario: you published a code into production and you found there's a bug, right? You need to fix that quickly. So you make that change, apply a tag, to make it look like a different version and push that tagged version to the production. Okay, one more from Anup. In Azure Pipeline, can we build a Docker and use that as an artifact to be pushed to staging? Use Azure pipelines to build Docker containers, right? If you are using Azure, if you are publishing the Docker containers in Azure, then there's a service called, Azure has a service called Azure Container Registry. And within that service, there's something called tasks. You can definitely use, with the help of that service, you can build your Docker containers, and then that can be pushed to any environment. So it could be a staging and any other environment, depends on how you are really building the pipelines. But yeah, what you're asking, it's possible. Okay, I will just wait for a minute. If you guys have any other question, then we'll do a wrap up, right? So one more thing is, before you leave the call, there's a feedback link. It would be great if you can. We would appreciate if you can just fill that feedback form, right? It will help us to improve our further webinars, and also, okay, okay. Can we have more details how to integrate pipeline on a IIS server? I hope that when you're mentioning ISS, it's a really IIS, right? Internet Information Services of Windows. Right? Let me find a link for that to help you, build, configure that setup. Okay, what automation API tool is easily integrated with CI/CD? Okay. So for automation, there are multiple options available. There's a Visual Studio test cases as well. You can have, if you are building a .NET application, you can definitely have in your pipelines. If you are looking from a stress test perspective, there's in the integration. Yep, JMeter. So you can use that as well for your, if you are looking from a stress testing perspective. So you can use JMeter within, again, the Azure DevOps. So can we schedule a mail notification for project work item status on any email ID? Yes, you can, but not on any email ID. You'll only people who are part of the, as a project managers will get a notification, and the task who've been assigned to, right, they'll get the notifications, right? If you want to get notification for everything, then you need to be a project manager of that project. So you'll get notification if there is any change within the any task in that project. And again, I would repeat myself, if you can guys fill that feedback form, we would really appreciate that, and it will also help us to improve our further webinars. And thanks for joining, and thanks for taking out time. Right, I know it's Tuesday and still working. Right, yeah, most of them might still be working. So thanks for your time.